Welcome to Conversations Live, where we bring you the best in music, books, entertainment, and current events. When the movers and shakers of the world have something to say to you, they say it to us. Now, here is your host, Cyrus Webb.
It is getting ready for summertime, and many of you will be taking trips going into the summer break. And for those of you with children, I know one of the things you're going to want to do is make sure you're packing along books that you can not only read along with your child, but also share with yourselves as well. Author K.S. Brooks is here to talk to us about her love of writing and also encouraging others to read, and also how she's been able to merge her love of photography and postcards and her brand new book. She's joining us for the first time here on our program. K.S., welcome to Conversations Live.
Thanks for having me, Cyrus. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to get into the book here in just a moment, but I want to start by talking about your love of reading. When did you first realize that reading was something that you were passionate about?
Reading, I can't really answer that because I read everything, and I guess my first memory of just devouring things was in the 3rd and 4th grade when we lived in California, and we didn't really have any books because we had been moving so much, but I had my 1967 Encyclopedia Britannica Junior, and so I read it. I just remember constantly reading the encyclopedia, dictionaries, thesaurus, whatever happened to be there. And that's kind of a provocative question because I always think about when I started writing, not really so much when I started reading. So thank you for asking that.
Well, I thought about it because I have always looked at books as being a way to transport me to places that I hadn't been. I remember growing up and thinking, oh wow, New York seems like such a great place. Would love to visit there. And I read about it. Then when I finally got there, I'm like, oh okay, I've read about this place. And it is interesting because you and I had not talked earlier that you would be reading, of course, about places that would take you on this journey. Did that kind of help set the stage for Postcards from Mr. Pish?
I'm not really sure. But what you said about being transported through reading, that's what I try to do when I'm sharing, is to show people places that they haven't been, that they might like to go, or that they never even dreamed existed. So I guess maybe I'm kind of a frustrated teacher or something, in that I just want to be able to show people and have them, just open their eyes and say, wow, that place is wild.
Right. It's interesting. You say being a frustrated teacher, you have gotten praise from educators from this book. I think because of the great marriage that the book does and bringing you a fun story, but bringing real pictures. I think especially for young people, to have something that they can actually look at and say, hey, that's a real place, instead of something that's drawn. You've been able to do that with photography, and then of course the idea of the postcards. Can you talk to us a little bit about photography and when you first got involved with it?
Well, actually, that's kind of an embarrassing story. My grandfather is Impressionist painter Stokely Webster, and he's fairly well renowned throughout the world for his being an American Impressionist studying in Paris. My mother kind of followed in his footsteps, and they were both very excellent painters. So, I was like, well, I should be able to paint. Well, no. No, it was definitely not a good thing for me to be doing, and it was very frustrating. I couldn't make anything look like what I wanted it to. So I picked up a camera right about at the age of 13, and I don't know what it is about the way I see things, but people started to really be drawn to my photography because they said I look at things differently than other people. So I don't know if that's because of my family's painting background or just because my brain might be a little bit weird.
Well, I can definitely relate to that, being told that I see things a little differently. So I think that's a great thing, actually. For those that are just tuning in, you're listening to Conversations Live. We're speaking to author K.S. Brooks. We're talking a little bit about her background, about for herself, she was sharing with us a little bit about that she used to devour everything when it came to reading, and then how she got into photography. Now, photography is a big part of the book, Postcards from Mr. Pish. Kind of talk to our listeners a little bit about the story.
Well, the story kind of started out accidentally. I was at my best friend's house in Boston on our way north to go east to basically go west. And we were moving from Maryland to Washington State, and we wanted to see the things that we hadn't really had a chance to see before we made the big move. So we kind of did it in a really odd kind of cattywampus squiggly line. And she said, because I'm a writer, oh, you should write a book of postcards about your feelings everywhere you go. And I said that would be really boring, but if I wrote postcards from a dog to kids to teach them about each place, then that could be really fun. And, after that, we really kind of tried to take advantage of the different unusual places that we came across. But I didn't really take it seriously until I got to Washington State and said, that idea, I really like that. And that was such a fantastic trip. I would like to share it with everyone, not just children. But if I could turn it into an educational tool to help teachers teach children about our geography and maybe a little bit of history, then maybe this could be something really good.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And it just kind of went from there. Now, speaking, of, we were talking about brains, maybe functioning a little different. I was going through my notes of the book because I read the book, several weeks ago. And another thing that I noticed I wrote down when I was actually reading the book through the first time was about the writing process. And that does bring us to writing. Because I thought it was interesting the way that the postcards were written from this dog, this very talented dog, being able to tell all of us about these places, was it really kind of shares with young people how easy it is to talk about their journey in words. Was that a afterthought for you, KS, for the project, or is that something that just happened to be the way that it went about, that this was actually a way to be able to show kids how they could tell their friends, even as they're traveling, about places that they're visiting?
Cyrus, I have to be completely honest with you, that never even occurred to me, not even for a second. And I've been really thrilled that people have come to me and said, wow, my kid read Mr. Pish's book in class, and then they had a project. They all had to write postcards. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people have talked about, how writing postcards is going by the wayside because of email and the Internet. And that, they're really hoping that this will kind of help revive that method of communication. And I really was kind of floored by that because, like I said, it never occurred to me.
Well, yes, it's the thing. I mean, but it's great that you're being used that way. I got a postcard actually in the mail last week, and I thought about your book. I was like, you know what? This is just like, like Mr. Pish. And I think that's one of the great things about books, getting us kind of full circle to where we started, is that they do have this ability to help us to relate to things in our own lives. I mentioned when introducing you that, a lot of people are getting ready to travel. I think this will be a fun project for young people to do. Hey, when you're visiting a place, stop by a gas station, ask your parents to stop by a gas station, get a postcard, and write about that place, what it looked like. And I'm curious, you talked about that experience, about the assignment that came up later about postcards. What do you hope people take away from the book? Because there are so many different things that will come out of the project that may have been unintended. But what do you actually hope? What was your hope as you were writing and putting it together?
I really want to get, there's kind of double-edged sword here. I'd like to see parents and kids really sit down and interact. I think that the book is very interactive that way. I think that it's of a level that kids, elementary school kids, can read it on their own, but that it's also a good book for parents to read to their children. And kind of with the questions that Mr. Pish asks throughout the book, I think it's good for interaction and getting kids and adults excited about going places and learning new things. The other thing that I was really trying to do, my goal, is to get kids away from the television and the video games and the internet and to say, wow, look at what's out there in this country and in Canada. You know, just wow, look at what's out there, and to really get kids outside.
Yeah. And you've been able to do that through a great story, also through the postcards that are there. You have a lot of fun information on your website, too, KS. Why don't you go ahead and give our listeners that website?
My personal website is www.ksbrooks.com. Mr. Pish is Mr. Pish, M-R-Pish, P-I-S-H.com. And he's also on Facebook at facebook.com/Mr. Pish. That's just M-R-P-I-S-H. And actually, we just got back from an extensive trip to do some more books in this series. And during that trip, Mr. Pish mailed 130 postcards to Facebook fans. And, you know, kind of reiterating what you said about the postcard writing, I was amazed how excited people got when they received his postcards.
Mm-hmm.
It was really neat.
I think, again, one of the great things about books, what they're able to do and what they can encourage all of us to do. Our first guest was talking about how her dealing with stress has now helped her to be able to help other people do the same thing. And I think your book, you know, may be able to help to spark something that some people, as you said, thought may have been lost, and that it's postcard writing. I mean, it's something so simple, but it's something, and I think I said it even in my review on Amazon, it's a great book for not only young people but also adults as well, because we need these reminders as well to get back to the more personable things. Emails, I think, have made us all so impersonal. But postcards is something very personal. Let someone know that you were thinking about them while you're away. So congratulations, KS, on the book and also on the after effects of it. Again, if you'd like to get in contact with KS, you can do that at her website, as she mentioned, ksbrooks.com. But of course, most people want to contact Mr. Pish, so you can go to www.mrpish.com. And as she mentioned, he's on Facebook as well. So KS, again, thank you so much for coming on. And look, you're welcome back anytime.
Thank you so much, Cyrus. It's been a pleasure.
All right. We're going to take a quick break here on the radio side of the show. When we come back, we have Sean Simmons will be joining us. For our online listeners, you'll have to change over to our second blogtalkradio.com station to hear the second part of the show. Just go to blogtalkradio.com/mid. I'm sorry, that's where we are now, Midday Conversations. You go to Conversations Live. That's www.blogtalkradio.com/Conversations Live to hear the second part of the show. Again, we're going to take a break here. We'll be right back. Stay with us.